Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about our updated top 24 Dynasty cornerback rankings with tiers and including rookies.
Hike!
All right, Joe. So why don't you start us off? Who do you got in tier number one?
All right, Steve. Well, tier number one's going to be pretty simple. I kept it to one guy, and that's Devon Witherspoon.
One guy. Wow, that is very bold. You've not done that yet.
Have not, but I felt conviction to do so.
So at number one, I have Devon Witherspoon. Number two, Sauce Gardner. Number three, Derek Stingley. And number four, Sneed. So let's talk about your main conviction of Devon Witherspoon, which I honestly don't think is crazy. I did think about it myself. It's just weird to have a one-person tier. But he was so dominant this previous season in his rookie campaign. And if you look at the other players that I put in there, I think that they're good. But I could see why you like Witherspoon a lot.
Yeah, I just had a hard time with who else to put in tier one other than Witherspoon, and he just had such a good rookie year. He had the high tackle floor. I feel like the Seattle Seahawks really utilized him a lot. Even in the blitz game, he got some sacks on the season. So I just felt like he's just a cut above everybody. So and don't get me wrong, I like the guys that you mentioned as well. I just think Witherspoon's just a step above those guys.
Yeah, it's interesting because Tyrique was the guy in Seattle, and then he kind of, and you talked about how he was benched some. Witherspoon really became the star, in that secondary. So I'm with you. I think, he had a really impressive year, and he is well deserving of being the number one guy, as I have him as well. Of this group, I think the guy who most changed here was Sneed. Obviously, got traded from the Kansas City Chiefs. He went to the Tennessee Titans. I didn't know whether to keep him in tier one because he's done so well in Kansas City. But the question will be, will he continue to do so in Tennessee? And you've seen it time and time again where a player is very successful at the place they're drafted. They get the bag, they go somewhere else, and then all of a sudden they just tank. And I think that could happen for Sneed, but I think the benefit for him is they do have Chidobe Awuzie across from him. And we've always talked about if you have a second corner who's good, you're not going to have Sneed on an island that he never gets the ball thrown his way. So I think at the end of the day, I didn't feel confident about putting him in tier one, but based on his past, I feel like he's deserving of it, even though he's a little bit older. Corners can play later in their career. So I opted to put him in there, but I can understand why you did it.
Yeah, I think, I'll talk about him here shortly. I still have him pretty highly rated. I just kept him out of tier one. But I think I am interested to see how he does with his new role with the Titans, kind of being that guy who's going to be taking on the, potential number one for the opposing guys, where I'm not so sure he did that all the time with Kansas City when they had Trent McDuffie on the other side in Kansas City.
All right, Joe. So who do you got in tier number two?
All right, in tier number two, going with number two, I've got rookie corner Cooper DeJean.
Wow.
At number three,
holy cow.
I've got Trent McDuffie. At number four, I've got Derek Stingley Jr. 5, Sneed. 6, Keisean Nixon. And 7, Nate Hobbs.
Wow, there's a couple of names that I did not expect to hear. At 5, I've got Paulson Adebo. 6, Trent McDuffie. 7, Trevon Diggs. 8, DeRon Bland. And 9, Tyrique Stevenson. I am, well, no one can see at this point, but I've fallen off the chair at this point. No, I'm kidding. I am blown away by Cooper DeJean not having one snap in the NFL, and he is your number two corner. And also I see Keisean Nixon on here, so I'm assuming you believe that the kick return game is going to be a huge factor in the NFL because obviously we anticipate DeJean to be doing a lot. Nixon, obviously, rare, one of the defensive backs who are very good at this. So what was your view as to why DeJean was worthy of the number two spot?
Yeah, I just like his upside and his potential, and kind of the theme for some of these guys being in here, whereas, kind of being players in the slot and being closer to the line of scrimmage to, get more plays, get more tackles. And I think Cooper DeJean is going to be really interesting to see how the Philadelphia Eagles use him. Obviously, I think he's similar to a player like CJ Gardner-Johnson, who obviously they did bring back, but you saw what CJ Gardner-Johnson was able to do that one year with the Eagles when they did move him all around. Got it. I think Cooper DeJean is going to have a pretty high tackle floor, and that really helps as a corner. And then if he is able to get the pass deflections, interceptions on top of that, that's when you see, some of these guys elitely go. But you mentioned the kick return game, and that's something that Cooper DeJean is very good at. And you also mentioned Keisean, Nixon, both of those guys. I did put that into heavy consideration, especially being our league awards points for those return yards. And that's something that these guys both have in their arsenal.
So why Nixon though? Like I can understand a little bit about DeJean. He was very good at it in college, and there was a lot of buzz surrounding him as a player coming into the rookie draft here. But why Nixon? I mean, he's not a household name. He definitely was not in your top 24. He obviously got a big boost in our league based on pick return yards, being more valuable. What made you put him this? I mean, I can understand maybe him being 24 or 23, but 6?
Well, if you looked in he performed very well last year in our league. I believe I'm pulling it up now. He was the number 7 cornerback in our league last year, and he still got that nickel cornerback role. He had 80 tackles, only had 1 interception, 6 pass deflections, but I think there's a lot to. He's still a second year. I think he's got potential to take that another step. And like I said, the guy like Nate Hobbs as well. These guys playing closer to the line of scrimmage, they get a lot of the tackles, and that really helps to have, because that's sometimes these outside corners, they'll get you some interceptions and the pass deflections, but a lot of times they don't get you those mass amount of points because they just don't get the amount of tackles. And I know in our league we reward heavy for pass deflections and interceptions, but that makes guys kind of boom or bust. But a guy like Keisean Nixon will be a lot more consistent for you. Same thing with like a Nate Hobbs as well.
I was just going to ask you about Nate Hobbs. I'm a little confused that you had Nate Hobbs and you let him go. You had the number 7 dynasty corner, you let him go. Why?
Well, I simply couldn't afford him. I mean, he wanted a decent amount in our league, and also the fact that I like him. If he's ever, I think this is truly where he should be. If he's ever to play a full season, but that's the other thing. He tends to miss a few games here and there, and that hurts. But he's still a good corner, and I didn't want to discount that just because I didn't re-sign him in our league. I didn't want that to cloud the judgment.
Did you expect me to ask you about that?
Oh, I thought for sure, especially because
I signed him, so I like him. I mean,
you signed him, and I figured you're gonna say because I decided to basically keep Paulson Adebo around, let Nate Hobbs go, and yet I've got Nate Hobbs rated higher than Paulson Adebo. So
yeah, that is befuddling.
I figured you were going to have an issue with that. So
I do have an issue. Yeah. I guess you have some remorse, buyer's remorse over what you decided to do.
Well, not really. I mean, I was able to get Adebo, keep him at a cheap price. And the thing of it is, Nate Hobbs.
Let's talk about Adebo. What is it that you didn't make Adebo into do? Because you had him high last time, so something obviously changed.
Yeah, I dropped him a little bit. I think a lot of it was just, I don't know if it was just simply just coming off the season. I was just happy with his performance, but just looking back, like he definitely stepped it up last year, and kind of I'm just curious, like now that his name is out there and he kind of put forth that good season, is he going to have another good season? Is he able to put it together another really good season like he had last year?
Is it because of the selection of Kool-Aid McKinstry?
Not really, because I like to have guys that have good corners opposite of them, because I mean that's part of the reason why a lot of these bigger household names don't get the targets. And then if they're not getting targeted, they're not involved, so they're not scoring you a lot of fantasy points. That's why I kind of like those slot corners, because they don't always have to. They're closer to the ball, can make more plays than those guys on the outside.
Well, then I expect you to have DeJean Johnson and Kenny Moore in your top 24 later on, but we'll see.
I do. Yeah.
Oh boy, yes, you've changed your philosophy. Here's the thing with Adebo. I have him 5, and I rated him pretty high, and I'm not worried about McKinstry because I think McKinstry is more to do with that Marshawn Lattimore's days are
Right.
numbered. Guy can't stay healthy. His contract is super inflated. I think the future is going to be Adebo and McKinstry.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not worried that McKinstry's going to come and take Adebo's job. My thing is, now that Adebo had a pretty good season, our team's going to still try to attack him, or will they not? That's kind of.
So we've been staying on tier 2 quite a bit, but it's been a good discussion. One guy who's not a slot corner, from what I can see in this group. Let's talk about Derek Stingley. I have obviously higher than you. I have him in tier 1. You have him in tier 2. He's not a nickel corner.
Right.
What made you rate him so highly? Because most of these guys, other than Sneed and Stingley, play nickel.
Yeah, I like Stingley a lot. I like what they were able to do, add as well to the cornerback position in Houston. So and also the upgrades they were able to. I mean, bringing in a guy like Daniel Hunter should help him immensely. He's another guy. He just has to stay. He just has to stay healthy. But even though he's on the outside, he's a ball hawk. He makes the plays, gets the interceptions. So he's the type of guy that you want to have because he makes those big plays for you.
Oh yeah, he's prime for, I think, he did well last year. If he can stay healthy, I think he's prime for a breakout. And partially the
Correct.
reason why is because of that pass rush. So you got Hunter and you've got Will Anderson. If there's enough pressure put on quarterbacks are going to have to anticipate throw early. And he's a gambler. He'll go and he'll try to get those interceptions. So I think he could do a lot better in the pass deflection and the interception department next year. So I'm excited for Derek Stingley. I think he could really take the next step this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think he can too. And like I said, I mean, health is a big part of that. But in our league, I mean, he was averaging 16 points per game, which is pretty low. But he only played 11 games. I'd like to see him, be able to play a full season. He's played 20 games over the last 2 years, so obviously not the best. But even in those 11 games, he had 5 interceptions and 13 pass deflections. So you can just see in the small sample size, like that's what he does. He just a playmaker, makes and gets his hands on the ball.
Are you enjoying this episode right now? Well, if you are, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel or go ahead and follow us over at Spotify and Apple under the podcast name, The Salary Cap Show. If you're interested in any trade requests, head over to our X where we have a trade inquiry form where you can fill out and give us all the details you need to help us give you the best advice to make those moves. All right, Joe, why don't you head over to tier 3? Who do you got there?
All right. At number 8, I've got Dax Hill. Number 9, Teron Johnson. 10, Charvarius Ward. 11, Paulson Adebo. And at 12, I've got Tyrique Stevenson.
Okay, at number 10, I've got Christian Gonzalez. 11, Martin Emerson. 12, Cam Taylor-Britt. 13, Charvarius Ward. And 14, Denzel Ward. So let's first talk about a player who neither you or I had in our top 24. And the reason why is because he has, based on reports, changed positions. And that's now cornerback Dax Hill. Dax Hill was a safety, had a really good year as a safety, former Michigan alum. Now he's transitioning over to corner. How do you think that's going to pan out for him, Joe? I mean, I think it's going to be outside corner as well, because I know they got Mike Hilton on the inside. So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to use Dax Hill in that defense.
Yeah, I think he's going to do okay being that. I feel like a lot of people are thinking he was kind of small to be a safety anyways. So I think his transformation is going to be okay. He's got the speed and the quickness to play on the outside. Just going to be a bit of an adjustment for him, but I think he's going to make out okay. And I think eventually, I know you mentioned Mike Hilton. I think eventually, like he'll be that succession plan at that nickel position ultimately, as Mike Hilton's an older veteran player.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dax Hill, and I will be talking about. I'll be saying his name later, but primarily my reason why is because it's just a real unknown. I mean, I know there was talk as to whether he's going to be a corner or a safety when he was first drafted by the Bengals. He didn't really do much his rookie year, couldn't find the field, had his great sophomore season, Now he's switching positions. So I think for me, it was more so just the unknown of how this guy's going to do. That's why I personally had Cam Taylor-Britt higher, which I'll give you credit. I totally forgot him and Emerson last time. I made sure not to have that happen this go around because those guys are young players who I think have real potential. But I get why you have Dax Hill this high. I had him very high as a safety. Just think there's a lot of unknown with him right now.
Yeah, I mean that is fair. I just like being that he is a safety, like he's a for sure tackler, so I think he could have a higher tackle floor over some other the corners. And then as a safety, he was a big, he had a decent amount of interceptions and pass deflections, and if he can keep that same ball hawk mentality as a corner, I think that would only benefit him.
Now, a guy that I'm very excited about that you have yet to say here is Christian Gonzalez, a guy who, really the question will be, can he stay healthy? But I was very impressed with how he performed with the Patriots for their rookie year. And here's the thing. I mean, Gerard Mayo is going to be the head coach now. I don't think it's going to be that much different than the Bill Belichick defense. So I don't think there's going to be any fall off for Gonzalez. Do you agree? I'm assuming you have him in your top 24 as well.
Yes. Yep. I have Christian Gonzalez just later.
So you like him as well?
Yeah, I mean, you're higher on him than I am. I think he is interesting. I'm interested to see if he's gonna, like you said, big question is going to be his availability in terms of health. But I mean, he was somebody who was a highly touted corner coming out of college. So and the limited play we did see him, he is an interesting guy. I just didn't feel comfortable putting him up that high.
Last guy let's talk about in this tier is cornerback Tyrique Stevenson. Had a great rookie year with the Chicago Bears. I think it benefits him that he is across from Jalen Johnson, although I do think he is slightly overrated. He had one really good year, and everybody wants to talk about he's this great corner. But Tyrique Stevenson definitely is going to benefit from that. And so I thought he was deserving to be here. I have him in 9. You have him 12. So we have him in different tiers, but not that much far off.
Yeah, we're not too far off. Last time you were nervous about Tyrique Stevenson because we didn't know about Jalen Johnson, whether he's going to resign or not. I had confidence that Johnson was going to stay. You thought Johnson might leave, so you were reluctant to put Stevenson that too high. But now Jalen Johnson stays. You believe in him, and you put him up higher than me.
Well, contracts change a big deal. I mean, we look at this from a salary cap fantasy football perspective. So
Right.
for us, it's like, where are these guys long term? And so to me, now Tyrique Stevenson's longevity is drastically different. If you got a guy like Jalen Johnson, if he's even a shell of himself, right, and he's performing well, it's going to help Stevenson. So that's what really boils down for me. And so that's why I personally like him, because now I know Jalen Johnson's locked up. And so, I mean, contracts is the name of the game, honestly. Not in the type of fantasy football we play, but also in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. But especially I feel like for the contract leagues that we do play in, that plays a big part.
So, Joe, who do you got in tier number 4?
All right. At number 13, I've got Mike Sainristil. At 14, I've got Terrion Arnold. 15, Kenny Moore. 16, Quinyon Mitchell. 17, Deontay Banks. And at 18, I've got Kyler Gordon.
Wow. Okay, at 15, I got Dax Hill. 16, Nate Hobbs. 17, Terrion Arnold. 18, Keisean Mitchell. 19, Deontay Banks. And 20, Joey Porter. Now, I can see that your philosophy on corners has drastically shifted towards the nickel, because Mike Sainristil going to the Washington Commanders, I think you and I would not be surprised if this guy is the best nickel in the league in not very much time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this guy's just he's going to bring so much leadership to that defense. Even as a rookie, he's just an absolute dog. And nickel's going to be the perfect spot for him with that, Commanders defense. And like you said, he's such a playmaker. He's a guy that, was able to score several defensive touchdowns. He's a former wide receiver, so he's got the hands. And even though he's a small guy, he plays bigger. He's not afraid to go out ahead and make some tackles.
Oh, I know you've been a big fan of his, and honestly, he becomes. I mean, the Commanders secondary is kind of poor. I mean,
Yeah.
they lost Kendall Fuller. I don't off the top of my head. I don't know if they replaced him with really anybody. I mean, they've got Emmanuel Forbes, who they drafted, but that was a prior regime. Don't really know if he's going to be in favor with the current coaching staff. Got Benjamin St. Just, who was picked on all year last year. So it's not a great secondary. He probably becomes the best guy in that group.
Yeah. I think he definitely does.
Now, I didn't realize how much you love this rookie class because you've already got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the rookies already. So you are quite the fan. I might just start including some of the rookies. Here, I'll give you my thoughts because you and I are on the same page here. The reason why I put Terrion Arnold over Keion Mitchell, which at first I put Keion Mitchell ahead of him, which I know you probably weren't going to give me flack on. But as I understood a little bit more about Arnold has a higher tackle floor. So to me, that is a huge benefit. Not that you're going to want a corner to get. I'm kind of a mix. I'm not as tackle heavy as you are. You're kind of relying more on those tackles with nickels are closer to the ball. But Terrion is a dog. He's a great tackler. Now his playmaking ability isn't as good as Keion Mitchell, but I think he'll still get pass deflections. So in our league, pass deflections are rated quite highly. So I'm not as concerned. So I think at the end of the day, I go towards Terrion Arnold over Keion Mitchell, but I obviously have it very close.
Yeah, I thought it was close as well. But Terrion Arnold, man, for what he brings, and he went to a great landing spot with the Detroit Lions. He really embodies everything that Dan Campbell's trying to bring. Like you mentioned, he's just got that dog mentality, man. He's a physical player. Yeah, he's going to bring the juice. I like Arnold, and he's got the ability to make plays on the ball as well. But like you said, I agree with you in terms of the pass deflections. But yeah, he's not afraid to go up and make those tackles, which I could be a little more concerned about whether or not if Keion Mitchell is going to be as game to go up and make those tackles or not.
Does the Alabama cornerback kind of concern you at all? Obviously, you had, from the top of my head, I know D. Milner was a top 10 pick. He was a bust. I want to say Alabama corners have been kind of hit or miss in the NFL. I know Marlon Humphrey, I believe, was a Alabama.
Yeah,
He was good.
I mean, you got Pat Surtain. The problem, I just think Terrion Arnold's a different type of player because I feel like a lot of those other players, like even Pat Surtain, he's just like he's like smooth and like he's in position. He's a very smart player. But from what I understand, Terrion Arnold's just a completely different style corner, and he's not of those other types. And he's just he's more physical, and that's the thing. Like even a guy like Pat Surtain, like he's not the most physical player, and that's the difference. And that's where I think Arnold's going to bring that physicality and have that tackle floor, unlike some of those other guys.
One guy I included in the top 24 that I didn't have before was Joey Porter Jr., a guy who is now trying to claim that he's the number one guy. So it sounds like his dad was he liked to smack a lot of talk.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like the apple didn't fall too far from the tree here. But I think that this secondary is a lot better for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Minka should be back, over top at safety. They were able to acquire Dante Jackson. So, I mean, there really weren't that much help. And so I think that Joey Porter Jr., if you look at all the defensive measurements and statistics last season, he did quite well. So I think that he's primed. If he can just have a decent corner opposite from him, I think he could get a couple, or quite a few, I should say, pass deflections. So he's a younger guy. I think he could have a pretty good season. So I thought he's deserving of the top 24. Although if you look at his stats, and even in our league, you would say he's not deserving of a top 24. I'm expecting a little bit of a jump.
Yeah, that's ultimately why I didn't put him in there.
You considered it?
I considered him. I just at the end of the day couldn't do it. Just looking at the stats and things like that, and ultimately I was just disappointed in him. And hopefully he'll kind of start maybe backing up some of that trash talk that he's doing, and play better and ultimately, start scoring points for the fantasy. But I just wonder if people, to me, there's not that. I know you said the secondary kind of improved, but to me, it's easy to avoid Joey Porter Jr. So I'm just wondering if he's just going to fall under that category of just another one of those guys on the outside. Just hey, this guy's pretty good. Just don't test him, don't try him, and go to the other side of the field.
All right, Joe, closing it out. Who do we have in tier number 5?
All right, at 19, I've got Cam Taylor Britt. 20, I've got Christian Gonzalez. 21, Pat Surtain. 22, Sauce Gardner. 23, Rasul Douglas. And at 24, Roger McQuarrie.
Okay, 21, I got Patrick Surtain. 22, Teron Johnson. 23, Rasul Douglas. And 24, Jalen Ramsey. Well, we both had your boy there from Colorado, Patrick Surtain, in tier number 5. People will say he's the best corner in the league. I know you can't stand hearing that because he doesn't do much. And I think that's why you and I both have him here. Guy's a good cover corner, but he doesn't, nothing happens in the box score. No tackles, no picks, no deflections. He's just there.
Yeah, the only time he gets picks is in the Pro Bowl flag football games. Other than that, he's in good position to make some tackles, but that's about it. It frustrates me, man. I wish he was more of a ball hawk. And then, now he wants to get paid like a top corner because everyone's touting him as a top corner. But he might be that for the NFL in terms of coverage. And I get all the metrics are good, but and I feel the same similarly with Sauce Gardner. I think both of these guys are in position. Teams don't want to go throwing at them. So ultimately, your fantasy team suffers because of that.
You and I are drastically different on Sauce Gardner. I mean, it's
You drafted him. You loved him coming out of college. So
I did, and I was right.
On.
I mean, he's performed very well.
Not in the fantasy league.
In the rookie year, he did.
Right.
Second year, he didn't do as well.
That's why, you know what? That's another reason to have rookies higher because they're saying, oh, let's target these rookies. And they got way opportunities to score you points.
We've heard different information surrounding that, whether that to be true or not. I know that's what you believe, but
that's what I believe.
I know, but we've had guests on the pod that feel otherwise.
So how come Sauce Gardner hasn't scored the same since his rookie year, since NFL teams saw that he could play lockdown and they're like, oh boy, we better not test this guy.
Let's see what he does. See what he does in year 3. I mean, I'm open to see what he does in year 3. I mean,
maybe he'll get more holding penalties on him.
Well, he does do that a lot. I don't disagree with you, but I mean, I'm drawing a blank on who's opposite from him. I should know. He's DJ Reed. DJ Reed.
Yeah,
he's opposite. I knew it was going to come. But he's no slouch. He's actually a decent player. So I would think that Sauce could do better. I don't know. This team, let's just see. I mean, the Jets were in a funk all year last year with everything. I mean, first game of the year with Aaron Rodgers getting injured, it just the team was never able to recover. So I'm just be curious to see what he does. If he doesn't do as well, then maybe he's going to fit in that category of a possible island corner that isn't going to translate to fantasy leagues.
Yeah, that's a thing that I've never I didn't understand why he didn't get more fantasy points this year because of DJ Reed, and both of them were highly PFF rated players. All the metrics you look at, they were saying Jets had the 2 best corners, one of the best secondaries in the league, including the safety play that they were getting. It just didn't make sense for him to not get more targets at him.
So of all I think this was the last time we did this too, but you and I this is absolutely drastically different, the type of players that I have versus you have. I have a lot of players that you don't have, and you have a lot of players that you don't have. But probably the most egregious is I had Trevon Diggs and DeRon Bland. They were in my tier 2. You don't have them in your top 24 at all. So you do not like the Dallas corners. Let's talk about the guy who I like better in Trevon Diggs. Guy who was injured last year, tore his ACL, is going to come back. But if you look at what he's been able to do when he has been able to be healthy, guy's been a ball hawk. So has been Bland. But I think Bland, people are so excited about him because of all the return touchdowns. That's not a really repeatable thing. So, yeah. But he got 5 picks, I believe, in his rookie year.
He did. Yep.
So it's not to say that he doesn't get picks at all. It's just that 1 year. He's gotten them in both years. So why didn't you put Trevon Diggs in your top 24? I know he's a guy you've kind of soured on over time.
Yeah, I just don't think he's a good corner, and I think a lot of those years he got lucky with the picks, and it came off a lot of tipped passes, and he just happened to be at the right place, right time. And what I've seen from watching the Cowboys, he's just not a willing tackler, and as to where kind of my shift has gone, like I really to most of the guys that have scored like tops in our league aren't just like guys that are getting the pass deflections or interceptions. They're also guys that are getting like 80 to 90 tackles, and as well as the interceptions and pass deflections. So to me, Trevon Diggs, Deron Bland, they're just too reliant on making those big plays. Now, they're great if you want to win a week or in best ball. I think those are kind of the boom or bust guys that you want. But for, typically in our league, and I think more consistent guys that get you the tackle floor and then also have those interceptions and pass deflections on top of it.
I hear you, but I feel like they get targeted quite a bit. I don't think they're just.
Well, they'll get targeted because they're not good corners in the NFL. Like Diggs gets burned all the time, and if we had a better system of holding these guys accountable, you wouldn't even want Trevon.
No, and I'd love to see it, and that'd be something because if he wasn't, I wouldn't put him in here. But
right.
And honestly, if that was the case, this whole list would do some rework for sure.
Yeah.
So that does it for our top 24 updated cornerback rankings with tiers, including rookies. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and check our other IDP videos. We did this for defensive ends, defensive tackles, and linebackers. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about the safeties. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.